Let us turn back to the comments from Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago President Charles Evans in London today. He said the central bank should move, quote, aggressively to reduce unemployment, even at the cost of temporarily pushing inflation higher. For more, let's bring in Professor Allan Meltzer of Carnegie Mellon University. Dr. Meltzer served on the Council of Economic Advisors for both Presidents Kennedy and Reagan, and he joins us now from Pittsburgh. Dr. Meltzer, welcome back to Bottom Line. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Nice to see you, Mark.
Dr. Meltzer, Charles Evans, he received his Ph.D. from CMU. What do you think of his comments today?
I think they're mistaken and wrong-headed. Two reasons. One, they repeat the Fed's persistent error of paying too much attention to what's going on in the short term and not looking at the longer-term consequences of what they do. And in this case, especially, Evans' comments treat the problem as if more monetary stimulus could do much for unemployment. The last $600 billion didn't do much, and the reason is because we don't have a monetary problem at the moment. We have the lowest interest rates in history, and we have the largest amount of excess reserves by orders of magnitude that we've ever had. Right. So piling more excess reserves in there isn't going to do a damn thing.
Dr. Meltzer, then what might you expect Chairman Bernanke to say tomorrow when he speaks in Minneapolis?
I think he will not say much more than what he said at Jackson Hole, and because he has a meeting coming up, and there hasn't been a meeting since Jackson Hole, so he's more or less bound by the committee's decision now. He might lean a little bit toward more ease, but he understands that there's going to be a lot of opposition to that when the committee meets.
Dr. Meltzer, you just spoke of unemployment. The jobless rate has stayed near or above 9% for 29 months now. Does Washington have a clear answer on how to create permanent new jobs? And how do we get out of this ugly cycle where companies won't expand if no one buys what's produced, businesses won't hire because there aren't enough customers, and there aren't enough customers because there aren't any jobs, and those who have jobs aren't spending because their wages are stagnant?
Yeah, the missing word in all of that is incentives. I mean, the administration just never uses the word incentives. But if they want to get progress, they have to change the incentives. And what are some of the incentives that they want to change? Well, a business tax cut, which everybody seems to agree would be a good idea, would be a good idea. And the second thing that would be very helpful short term would be a 5-year moratorium on new regulation. Regulations prevent people from making investments. I mean, you don't know, with this wild group of administrators, you don't know what kinds of costs you're going to bear in the future, so you just don't invest. And you say, cash is my friend, I'll wait until they figure out what they want to do, and then I'll decide what I ought to do. But for the moment, I'm not going to do anything. Yeah. And that's the lack of incentive that the administration enhances.
Dr. Meltzer, speaking of incentivizing, President Obama, as you know, is going to address that joint session of Congress tomorrow, and we are hearing that he plans to propose an injection of more than $300 billion into the economy next year. Is that enough?
It's not a question whether it's enough. The question is it aimed in the right direction? I mean, he wants to micromanage where the money goes. The better thing to do would be to use whatever money he's going to spend to change the incentives that businesses face. You know, part of his $300 billion is more or less a welfare program to extend jobless benefits. It's hard to object to that. I mean, people have a need for support. But most of the things that he wants to do, like infrastructure, you know, that's not going to do anything very much. He may talk about another shovel-ready project, but we don't make infrastructure with shovels anymore. We make it with bulldozers and Caterpillar tractors and so on. And so it's not going to employ a lot of people, and it's going to face environmental and other kind of rules before it ever gets started. So that's just not a big event.
Yep. Dr. Meltzer, with partisan gridlock and near certainty, does government even have a role in creating jobs, or will the private sector have to do the heavy lifting? And you mentioned incentives. What incentive does the private sector have if it feels strangled by the yoke of burdensome regulations?
Yes, it doesn't have much incentive, and that's why we're not getting jobs. I mean, there are two big problems that we have at the moment, long-term problems. One is housing. We're not going to make carpenters into computer programmers. So that's a problem that's going to take a long time, and the administration's program of interfering with mortgages, suing mortgage companies and all that may be very desirable as a long-term thing to straighten out the mortgage market, but it sure doesn't do much for selling houses and getting mortgages today. So that's one long-term problem. The other long-term problem is the lack of incentives. And until they do something about that, they could do a lot about the lack of incentives now. Put the moratorium, 5-year moratorium on new regulation. Cut business taxes. There's almost uniform agreement that a business tax cut paid for by closing loopholes would be a good idea.
Dr. Meltzer, our final minute. Talk to me about the need for job retraining. You just hinted at that a moment. Do the people who are unemployed have the necessary skill sets for the new jobs that are being created?
You know, one of the mysteries is that everybody's in favor of job retraining, so much so that there are about 40 job retraining programs in the federal government. If we consolidated all those and had one successful program, we'd be ahead of the game. But, you know, it's hard to fight all the interests that want to have their piece of the action and accomplish very little.
Dr. Allan Meltzer of Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, which received a huge pledge, I understand, $265 million from the former steel executive William Dietrich. Congratulations on that. Dr. Meltzer, thanks so much. We appreciate your time.
Pleasure. Thank you.